Okay, here we go. Are we ready for the next 5 days? And we're going to work with landscape. So when we talk about landscape, it can be anything. Like really, you could just look out the window and just draw in what you see, even if it's just part of a fence line, just the trees. If you've got time, take yourself out for a walk with a little book. If you've got if you can actually you can do a sketch and then come home and do the painting part. If you don't have time, just pull up a picture online of a landscape you kind of like. What I'm going to show you today is a little bit of a technique that I got shown by a watercolour specialist trainer up in Darwin. And it's a really cool way to get a pretty effective sort of a landscape, a nondescript sort of landscape, and it kind of looks good. So what we're going to start off with is getting yourself a slightly bigger brush than what we have, and it's a flat. Now for this, I'm going to use the tube colours because I haven't actually used these ones, and I think I should probably use them before they dry out. So you can put a little bit in. You don't really need a lot of the colour. And what you do first is to actually wet the paper. Now, if you've got the thinner paper, it might not work out brilliantly, but you pretty much just brush water on your... What he told me about watercolour is that the whole thing of it is got to do with the water on the actual paper is what makes the process works. So I've got a very wet page there. Now see how it's wanting to curl up, and this is mixed media paper that I'm using in this book. So then I get a little bit of that colour, and see, I'll just place it on the top. You can place it as a bit darker on the top, and then you wear it down so that it becomes lighter and lighter until it kind of goes to almost nothing. Now I've done this on bigger paper, it's a bit, and smaller paper, and it works really well. So that's part one. Then we wait for that to dry, and I'll show you one I've made earlier. So once that's dry, so I've got my blue that I did, I then turn them around and do the same thing with a kind of an ochre colour, and then that creates like a background for whatever you're creating. So I'm just going to use this little one, and you can see that because I've left this actually taped up for quite a while, it's probably stuck to the paper. So I'll go back to now getting some colours. Let's see, I'm going to do some sort of hills. So I might use a bit of burnt sienna, and you can use a combination of, what was he doing? Because you got the blue, and burnt umber, and maybe a bit of red. Can work well. So you can see these have been sitting a little bit around so that liquids are coming undone. Sometimes you just need to squish the little containers there to get them out. So I'll put a bit of a red, I'll give it a squeeze. Oops, didn't need that much, but sometimes that happens. I'm going to do another bit of a drawing after. Okay, so I'm taking a slightly bigger brush than what I had before, as far as, because the one I've been working with when we've been doing it's just a little one. And I'm going to create a bit of, again, you create your, when you're using the tube stuff, you need to use the water as your thing to mix things and to create your colours. Because one of the things he did say was about not using necessarily, so you can see the red's really strong, hey? So I can just have that as one colour, and I might bring some more of that brown into another here and create that with the blue to get a darker So see how you can actually get darker colours without necessarily using the blacks. And to make so I'm going to make a little bit of a mountain here. So I'll just almost just dab it on. And think about how you might have hills. Ooh, that's interesting. It's a bit water fast at the moment. And you could bring in the other colour. Now I haven't done this in ages, so it'd be a good time to practice, I think. But one thing he did say is with this, don't do too much because it just does go very muddy very quickly. So there you go. So he actually said that you can actually tape across, you could tape across there to get a really clean line if you wanted to, but just dabbing your brush rather than trying to fill in the space and then bringing in the other colours over the top to get almost like the crevices. There might be a darker spot where the things are behind other things. And then you can actually bring in a thinner brush if you wanted to and do things like with a darker, you can create things like trees. Obviously you've got to wait between things drying, but it's things like trees. It's just a really thin brush and just kind of lines. I will leave this to dry because otherwise it won't work, but I will show you on this one that's not got anything on it. So all I'm doing is a line and just, now your landscapes too don't have to be in realistic colours. You could really use whatever colours you like. It could go quite crazy. So I'm going to have some more trees happening here. So see how I'm not even filling in like a proper line as well. It gives you that look that it is a tree, but not necessarily that you have to make it look realistic. It's kind of an impression of it. So you could, once it's a little bit dry, work it a bit more. If you wanted to do leaves, you could come in with an even smaller brush and just the tip of the brush, and you can do things like that where you just dab. You use sort of the shape of the brush when you just put it down to get the leaves. So that, my lovelies, is some little bits of watercolour technique that you can use to create your landscapes for the next 5 days. Let's see what interesting things come up. If you were doing things like buildings, which you could do cityscapes, there's no reason for that. You can just, think about it. You're working with squares. Actually, that's something we haven't looked at. If you get stuck with something like, let's do a basic, what do you call it? Perspective. That's the word. Okay, so one of the things that you can decide is where your horizon line is. Now, when you look at a landscape anyway, you kind of sort of know where does the earth meet the sky. Now, sometimes you can do it really low and you get a lot more sky. So if there's something interesting in the sky that you can do, then you can use that. Sometimes you can have it up higher or kind of in the middle. If you have your horizon line to start with, it just makes you be able to place things somewhere. So and then we also make things go towards them, because if you look at a road, for example, so say we have a point there that I'm going to call that our vanishing point. Everything goes towards the vanishing point. So if I did a road, I would have it going to that line. Now it might be here, looking like it's big, but then it's going to get smaller as it goes towards that line. So you follow all your things towards the line, and you think about it that you might have a, say it's tree lined, or your telegraph poles. So if I go with my telegraph pole here, because that can always look cool, I can look at the top of it and make a really faint line towards that line as well, and then all my other poles fit within that, and then you'll find, or if you do it from the bottom as well, you'll find that that's all going to sort of look okay, because they're going to be fading away at a similar rate. So you can do that with anything, with trees and stuff. So whatever you have in the right at the front, use the top of it to give you your height, and then run it to there. So say if you had, what else could you have? So if you had a building, which you start off with, it's just a rectangle, and it goes a little bit of a leg up to get a cube. That's all you start with, is your shapes. So if I go from there down to that line, I could have my other buildings going towards that line too. So you see, you can make them bigger or smaller, just to make it look more like a set of buildings, and then you just add your windows. But if you follow what you're seeing, which is what we're aiming for, you'll find that you do that naturally anyway. But that's the way to do it if you just happen to want to make a landscape for whatever reason. So have fun with that, and I'll see what everybody's posting in the group.